Everyone is Addicted is a judgment-free space for real conversations about addiction. It's a show about breaking the stigma and building empathy. Everyone is Addicted, Mondays at 11 p.m.
What's going on, everybody? This is the host of Recover Out Loud podcast, Sean Young. Before we dive in, I want to be clear. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not here to diagnose or treat. I'm simply a catalyst, someone who's walked through the fire and now speaks from experience, reflection, and a deep desire to help others find their way forward. This podcast may include honest conversations about addiction, mental health challenges, and suicidal thoughts or ideations. These are real parts of the human experience, and we won't shy away from them. If you're listening, please do so with self-care and self-awareness. And if you're struggling, please reach out. There's help out there. And most importantly, there's hope. Viewer discretion is advised. Now let's get it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Recover Out Loud, episode 116. Today, we got a really awesome guest. You saw her face at the beginning of the video prior to. She is the host of Everybody's Addicted, Jasmine Bootle. How you doing, Jasmine?
I'm good. How are you?
I am great. It's a good day to be alive. It's a great day to be sober.
Yep. Every day sober is a great day to be sober, I guess. Realistically.
Absolutely. So, Jasmine, would you like to give us a formal introduction of yourself?
Okay, so I'm Jasmine. I don't necessarily like labels per se because I don't think it's fair to use that as your identity fully. But I will say I struggled with alcohol for 10 years, and then I got off of alcohol, and then I struggled with opiates for 2 years, where I found full sobriety at a methadone clinic. And in being in a place that is very opiate heavy and homeless heavy, I noticed how people were treating them. And being an addict myself, I know it wasn't your dream as a child to end up on the street or end up addicted like that. And I know the pains of going through it. So I wanted to kind of show people more understanding about addiction from a family's perspective, because I also have a daughter with someone who's an intravenous fentanyl user. So I have kind of experienced it from both sides. But anyhow, so I seen that gap there where people were just not treating people right. So I wanted to bring on people to show them that we're human, we're all human, you know? And then I kind of progressed into realizing there's a bit of a gaps in our healthcare when it comes to sobriety. And lately, my mission has been to try to show as many clinically proven ways to find sobriety as possible. I don't believe one size fits all, and I'm trying to show people that they can find freedom and take that first step without fear and anxiety or with resentment or anger. So that's kind of my deal, I suppose.
Absolutely. And you said one thing that sticks out to me a lot is you don't like to put labels on yourself or identify as something. I think one of the big things that kind of pushed me away from AA, and I've said this before on the show, is having to identify myself as an alcoholic because I've recovered. And not so much the God thing. I know a lot of people have a problem with the God thing. I don't really have a problem with that. For me, so much it's I'm putting myself in a victimhood statement or a victimhood stance if I identify myself as an alcoholic, because that would insinuate that I'm not capable of recovering. And I understand that it's a disease of the mind, but there's also clinical therapists and psychologists that help with that, right? And so,
There's
um,
medications, there's harm reduction medications that you don't even have to stop drinking for it to help you quit drinking, but it's not something you know about, right?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I think those labels are more damning than sometimes than our actual use at times, because we start to fall into those ruts of like, yeah, there's no damn way that I can overcome this.
Well, I'd also get in fights with like an ex or something, and they'd be like, "You're an alcoholic, and that's all you'll ever be," and use that label as like a way to like cut me like with a knife, right? So I didn't really like to label myself too much like that because it would get used against me. And also with the AA thing, I also think the label and the constant talk about your past and what you did in the past isn't helping because it's just keeping you in that place you were already at, you know? You need to be able to get to the root cause of the problem to actually heal from the problem instead of just being like, I'm an alcoholic and I did this and I did that while I was drunk. Because eventually I feel like you'll end up needing something more, or else you could find something really hard happen to you in your life and end up relapsing, because trust me, I've gone through right now the hardest part of my life, worse than losing my dad, and I haven't picked up. But I guarantee if I still had that old past mentality, I would have picked up. If I would have been like, I'm an alcoholic and that's all I'll ever be. You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely. And you brought that up, is like, staying stuck in the past and like talking about the things you used to do. Like for me, I want to know what the fuck you're doing now, right?
Mhm.
You've been 20 years sober. That part of you is dead. What the fuck are you doing now? How are you fixing, what did you do to fix yourself? And what are you doing now to give back to the community? That to me is more powerful than a story about somebody, you know, binge drinking for 20 years of their life and then getting sober.
Exactly. And then hearing it 18 different versions, 18 different times.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that
Definitely.
can be an issue as well. Because like I once had somebody say in a AA meeting, it's almost like a pissing contest to see who was the worst drunk, and as we go along, we all try to one up each other on how bad we were. But that's not like, I don't find that as really resolving the problem. I almost find that as like egging it on in a way, like almost like reliving your battle stories. You know what I mean? And staying stuck in that and almost glamorizing it, which really didn't help me. It really didn't. A did not stick for me. I was only 24. I met a boy. I 13 stepped. I lied on my fourth step about him. I just didn't take any of it seriously because it wasn't for me. Like I said, one size doesn't fit all. It might fit somebody, but it definitely not for me, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's dive into your story, because we're tiptoeing around it now. So when do you remember your first drink of alcohol?
Oh, I was like 6 years old at a wedding. I drank some wine I thought was ginger ale.
Yeah, yeah,
But like, if you want to go back to when, like, my first real like bad drinking, um, I I my friend's sister had given us a 26er. I think we were about 15. Never ever had that much alcohol at once before. And I got blackout drunk. I fell over and hit holes in her walls. Like, it was like right away a problem. It was never something I could control unless there was drugs involved as I got older into high school, you know what I mean? And then cocaine would get involved, and I would purposely seek out the cocaine because I knew it would make me less of a sloppy drunk and I could keep drinking on top of it, right?
yeah,
So yeah, my story, if you really wanted to begin, is I kind of grew up in a home where my dad wasn't around, And my mom is perfectionist. Like, she would even make me homework. She wanted me to be like the best figure skater, the best ballet dancer, the best at school. And I tried so hard all the time, and it just, I don't know, I remember when I decided I gave up on things was when I tried really hard to win this award. Didn't win it because some other kid was more favoritized. And that's when I realized it wasn't fair. And that was about grade 6. And that's when I started stealing beers and hiding parents' like cocktails under the bed so that I could drink them later with whoever others kids were around, or stealing like my uncle's booze, or you know what I mean, just like mixing it all together and stuff like that. And I remember even snorting. My mom's friend had pills, and I remember snorting like Tylenol 3s, and this was all just my idea, and smoking weed and stuff. Like, it was all my idea, but I think a lot of it had to do with numbing the perfection aspect of my life. But then I got to high school where I was bullied really, really, really badly. Like, I mean, held down and beat up numerous times to be told by the principal that they're good girls, and I didn't get beat up, even though I'm covered in blood. And I got kicked out of that school right after for forging a report card because I was skipping because I was trying to avoid these people. But I had a friend who also was treated the same way. So we banded together, and they used to sleep around with the boys. We had the good idea of, why don't we hang out with them and do drugs with them and party with them and just be their friends. So that's when things got into the drugs, is what I mean. Like the harder drugs like ecstasy and cocaine, and maybe smoking cocaine and stuff like that, right? And like parachuting ecstasy, and I don't know, doing not very good things, right? And then you have these conversations with your friends you think are so deep, but they're really not. But my alcoholism really took a turn when my mom and my dad split up, because my mom kind of left my dad with nothing. So I stayed with him, and I always maintained working jobs in restaurants as a server or a bartender. So I was always able to function working in that kind of service area just because I knew it so well. If I was hungover, I could just do it like robotically. But anyhow, I started drinking really heavily that point. So did my dad, actually, because he was upset too. So whatever extra money we have, we would like count it out for our booze fund. It was bad. And then my dad, like, we didn't even have a car. And I might have finally saved up enough for a car. And I decided to get drunk and drive it into a tractor trailer. And the only reason I'm alive is because it was a Chrysler Fifth Ave, which, if you know anything about cars, it was still made of metal at the time and had a massive front end, or I would be not here. But that didn't stop me either, because after court, my dad would still take me to buy two for, and we would do really disgusting things, like, because he was an alcoholic at this point too, where if we had a party, the next day we'd go and sieve out all the beers and put them into a pop bottle, and sieve out like the cigarette butts and stuff and put it in a pop bottle, and we would drink it, which is like the day after we were drinking. So this is the second day of drinking, just because we didn't have a lot of money, right? So we would drink cigarette butts, pop bottle, old beer from the porch. So that's one that's not the greatest, right? But then I met somebody in the military, and I started to go to AA. He was incredibly abusive. So hence I met this other boy in AA and kind of skipped off with him, and that didn't work out very well for me. He pretty much broke my self-esteem, which led me to relapse and go buck effing wild. Like, I put myself in situations that were so dangerous. Like, I once wasn't allowed to leave I wasn't allowed to leave a party unless I like stripped out of my underwear and like danced and stuff like that. That was a humiliating one, especially because my friend confronted them about it and they were like, "Oh, she's just like that." And that was fun, but that I also would go and like meet up with people that I didn't know. I mean, I would go hang out with bikers and I didn't even know them, and I wouldn't realize that I'm in a situation that isn't the most safe, and I'm like making fun of them and stuff. So like I could have just disappeared right then and there. Like there's like those are a couple of some of the dangerous experiences, I guess, that I can kind of remember. I was a blackout drunk, so I don't remember a lot. I feel like that is my blessing in disguise, is I don't remember. So I don't have to have those thoughts and regrets and shames because I don't remember. But then I got pregnant with my first child with my high school kind of like crush. And at the time he wasn't using drugs. He was like a normal person. He would drink beer on the weekend and work during the week and stuff. But after we had my daughter, my father, who I was extremely close with, got prostate cancer that had gone all through his body, his bones, everything. And so I stopped drinking immediately because I wanted to spend as much time with him as possible. And then he refused to stop working and he got septic shock. And I had to live in an ICU for 3 months because they put him in a medically induced coma because they couldn't figure out where the septic shock came from until somebody from his work came to visit him and explained what he did for a living. And they were like, oh, it's from air conditioners, and that's how they got him better. But they told me to pull the plug like 800 times, and I just refused. I was like, nope, not happening. Nope, not happening. Nope, not happening. And this is where my drinking stopped because I prayed to God if he brought my dad back that I would stop drinking, right? So I stopped drinking because of that, obviously, because it came back, I just mentally, I just couldn't break that promise because I was afraid of what would happen. And then we got to have my dad for another year until he finally did succumb to his cancer. And that's when my family became vultures. I'm an only child, but his sister is a crazy vulture. And somebody introduced me to Percocets at that time. And because I had to sell my childhood home, which was probably one of the most heartbreaking things that I ever had to do. Um, and I had to like close all his bank accounts and do all these things and have my aunt bugging me for this and my mom telling me I'm not taking enough stuff because she's a hoarder and an alcoholic herself. So her going back in the house after I sold it, like there was just so much. And then also the CAS was called on my daughter's father, but because she lives with me, they that's the Children's Aid in Canada. They were also watching me, even though I wasn't doing anything. So I was under massive stress. So this Percocet was like euphoria to me, right? So I did have a little extra money from selling the house. I did buy a new house, but I had extra money, and that extra money got upped in smoke real fast doing drugs. And we got to a point where we couldn't afford Percocets or Oxane anymore, and we started doing fentanyl, me and the spouse that I have now. So he ended up having 3 massive heart attacks from fentanyl, and that's when I decided, obviously, I'm going to quit too. And I went to the methadone clinic, and I've been taking Suboxone now for 5 years. I go every 2 weeks and get my prescription re-upped. The reason I'm sober is because my doctor is just a really good person for me to talk to. She fits me. She knows how to like tell me things in a way I need to hear them, I guess. I don't know, she just works, right? And then May 13th, we lost our house. The police removed us, even though I was told that by a lawyer I could stay. And my husband would, or he's my, not my husband, my spouse would have to leave because we had split up and he was living with his parents. But there was a clause saying that you couldn't rent to somebody, but because he wasn't living there, it was considered a breach of contract because he was renting to me, even though I wasn't paying anything, right? So we lost our home and we've been staying with family, and it's been very, 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 very tumultuous. With my spouse, I don't trust him. He has gambling problems and like doesn't tell me anything, won't show me his bank account. He gets mad if I ask him questions. So I know that there is obviously something going on that I don't know about. And yeah, that sums it up to about here right now.
You've lived quite the life. You live quite the life, Jasmine. One of the things that you had mentioned before that you were talking about um, is quieting the noise of the perfectionism with your mom. And I kind of picked that out really quick, because you were talking about how your mom wanted you to be the best ballerina and best figure skater. And as soon as you said that, I was like the perfectionist, right? Like, and that takes a toll on the children, right? It took a toll on me when I was younger. It takes a toll on children throughout the world because we're not perfect, and the parents use the children as the tools of perfection, and it's terrible. So first, I want to say I'm sorry that you went through that. That's fucking terrible.
Well, thank you, and I can tell it happened to you, so I'm sorry it happened to you too. And you know what it is? It's that's where it plants that seed for us to have later on either mental health problems or become addicts because we can't quiet that voice because a lot of us have parents that want to live through us and we aren't what they want and they're not gonna stop, so we're gonna figure a way to stop, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
they're living
so
by
it's sad because I won't say I'm the only person that's experienced that, and I think you probably have too, and a lot of other people, right? And I would say at least like I haven't ever gone through anything that was as well, I mean, I've been raped before, but I mean, I was never like molested or anything like that, right? But I mean, luckily I didn't have that portion of like the family trauma. Do you know what I mean? Or the religious family trauma. And I'm thankful for that because I don't think that I would have made it out of my life before I had kids. Like, I don't think so. I think I
yeah,
would have mentally, like, right?
yeah. Oh, definitely, definitely. And you've had a lot of bottoms, and like I'm glad you're here. One of the things that I did want to share is if you would have if this would have been a conversation I had when I first started my journey, or even like the first like when I first started the podcast, I would have been addressing this differently. But I fully support MAT. You know, I didn't used to be that way. I had a real big bias. And I think everybody in recovery has a bias towards something, right? Whether it's people in 12-step programs were like AA is the only way, NA is the only way, right? I mean, that's not true. We talked about that at the beginning of the show, and I didn't really fully believe in MAT until I went to visit my best friend. I've shared this a lot on different episodes, but um, I had seen when I was in jail, I'd seen people abusing Suboxone, and I was like, you're not trying to get sober, you're just abusing it, right? And so I held that bias so long. Yeah, even with the Vivitrol shot and all these other forms of MAT out there. And it wasn't until I visited my best friend and one of my best friends in Nashville that he walked out and he was like, I'm about to change your mind. And I was like, you can't change my mind. And he held up the bottle of his Suboxone. And he was like, this is my prescription. I take this to keep me sober. And I was like, okay. And he was like, I take it as prescribed, as needed, and I go get tested. at,
Mm-hmm.
at the clinic. And that completely blew my mind. You're right. Like there's a possibility that medicine can actually help people recover. So at that point, it really opened my mind and it opened my eyes and heart to MAT and like every pathway to recovery because there's so many pathways. I think right now we're sitting at like 19 or 20 recognized pathways to recovery and there's more. I just
And when you
interviewed a guy.
talk to a doctor, they don't promote them. Do you know what I mean? So then a lot of people that are struggling don't have the proper resources to find something different. And that's why there's always that anger and resentment when they first go. And that's why I don't think it always sticks. You know what I mean? And that's my main goal is to I already have a homeless resources kind of thing where they can, anything in town they need, they can get. But I want to figure out how, basically, I just need to do like a website or something and categorize all the different ways that you can find sobriety, say like faith based, holistic based, harm reduction based, how to use harm reduction medication, do you know what I mean? There's so much to it. And I've talked, or even plant-based medicines. There's a lot of plant-based medicines out there too, which I was skeptical about until I talked to actual doctors that used it for the actual reason and not just kids playing around with magic mushrooms. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And it changes your mind so much. And I just feel like the doctors are kind of like how I would have been if I hadn't started this podcast, because as I said, it turned into me realizing that there's all these ways, right? Because as I only thought it was just 4 or 5, you know what I mean? Like detox, rehab, the 90 meetings in 90 days, the methadone clinic, or going to the psych ward, basically, right? So that's kind of what I thought and was taught. That's basically all you get. And they don't even teach you how to use Narcan. So if I seen somebody on the ground and I had Narcan, I wouldn't know how to help them. So that's why there just needs to be more training, because because I have an opiate problem, why wouldn't my doctor train me on how to use that medication, right? But she has never. I maybe because I've never peed dirty, I don't know, but I feel like it just should be something that if anybody comes in, because methadone clinics take every type of addict, which people don't understand. And so it's not just people with opiate problems. And they also have counselors and what you call it, social workers that help you with your paperwork and all that kind of stuff. It's different than what you expect, but it's that label of methadone clinic, right? Having
yeah.
to walk the doors. I wouldn't suggest taking methadone, because I was honestly higher on methadone when they first gave it to me than I was on fentanyl. I remember looking out the window and seeing the sunlight and being like, I can't take this medication, I'll die. And even if you look at there's been a lot of famous people that have overdosed on methadone. So I don't necessarily think it's the most the best harm reduction medication. But again, it's looking what fits you. I know somebody who takes ketamine, but she takes it in a clinical setting, like you said, if you take your medication properly, right? And she said, helped her wonders. I guess it just all depends on how your brain works. And I also know that about there's a brain machine. It sounds really crazy, but it's a brain machine, and it's called a deep something brain machine. But what it does is they hook it up to you, and it puts your brain back to where your brain waves should have been before you use drugs and alcohol and kind of put yourself off path. What it does is it puts your brain waves out where your brain waves are supposed to be as a person, right? It's through neuroscience, right? So it sounds really crazy, but you go and you do these sessions and you do counseling as well. It's not like that just fixes you, but it helps you think more clearly. So then when you go into the counseling after, it helps you be able to think clearly instead of she said it even helped her daughter get sober. I don't know. She had like 3 or 4 different doctorates, explained it really well, but I'm not her, right? But I'm just saying that it's just there's so much out there that we don't get to hear about, and it's not really fair because maybe more people would want to get sober if they knew about this kind of stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you said that you live in Canada. I've heard horror stories about people being removed and put into institutions involuntarily. Does that actually happen?
Oh yeah.
Oh goodness, that's terrifying.
If you mention suicide or suicide ideation to anyone, you're going away for like at least is it 72 or is it 70? I don't know. You're going away for 3 days just for mentioning it. So you just keep your thoughts to yourself, which keeps you sick, right? Like, why do that to people? They don't want to go there. It's horrible there. I visited a boyfriend there once, and it was horrible.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, they have down here in the states. It's called the Baker Act, and essentially, if you pose a risk to yourself or to other people, um, they can essentially call the cops and Baker Act you, and essentially you don't have the option to say no. They take you right to a facility, and you will be in the facility for an extended period of time until the doctors feel like you're good enough, which keeps you sick, right? Like you're going
Mm-hmm.
from an institution of your brain to an institution that is may or may not work on your behalf.
They also give you like different drugs everywhere you go, so your brain is so foggy that you seem like you have actual mental health problems that you don't have because you're on all this medication that isn't right for you. I knew a lady that she'd been like you said, Baker Act like about 18 times because her ex-husband had full custody and he'd play games with her and say she could come get her daughter, then pull that out on her. And she would say every time they give her different meds and they tell her different things and give her different health assessments. And she's like, I'm still sober, but Jesus Christ, they have given me so much medication I've had to spit down the toilet.
Yeah, that's like you can create medically induced schizophrenia. You can create medically induced bipolar disorder, shit like that. Like just because the brain,
Believes
the way,
it.
yeah, the way that the chemicals react to your brain can change the makeup of your brain. One of the things that you did mention was methadone. Do you watch like recovery documentaries at all?
I watch Intervention.
Okay. So there's a recover or there's a documentary. I gotta find the name of it. I'll have to send it to you. But Russell Brand, the actor, he does it. He's been sober for a hot minute now. And he
Yeah,
actually
now. Oh,
yeah,
yeah. He
yeah,
talks about it a lot.
yeah. So he walked into a methadone clinic and advocated for all of, for MAT except for methadone because methadone, like you said, does terrible things to the body. I'm not, and that's
It makes
pathway
you
to
lose your teeth. One lady I was sitting beside at the doctor's office took her teeth out and was like, "This is because of methadone." And I was like, "Thank God I didn't take it."
yeah. Yeah, and essentially, he goes in and he talks to the doctors and tells the doctors like you're keeping people sick, right? Like you're not really helping them. If you look at um, at other forms, Vivitrol, the shot doesn't do shit to you like at all. It just makes it so that you get sick if you drink. If you look at
And it's the same with opiates. If you get the shot or you take the pill, it's a beta blocker. So if you take the pill or the shot before, you won't feel the effects. If you take it after, you'll get ridiculously sick.
Yep, absolutely, and it's meant to be a deterrent from
Hmm.
drinking, using drugs. So,
Well, that's
Jasmine,
that's the same with me. So, like, I know because I have family members that are still addicts that I don't want to go off my Suboxone because it's around me, and I don't want to have it like just the temptation sometimes when life gets really hard. I know in the back of my mind that I can't take it. It won't do anything for me, and that gives me peace of mind to never have to not necessarily have to worry about relapse as much on a daily basis when I have somebody constantly talking to me about their morphine, you know.
Yeah. And if I'm not wrong, Suboxone, it cuts off the receptors in your brain that bring the cravings in, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, it does. And that's the saddest part is one of my friends, like I've known him, I live in a small town, so we grew up together, we started AA together, didn't work out for either of us, but the methadone clinic did, and he just stopped, like he just weaned off, and he said as he weaned off a couple months ago, and now he's like, people are offering me drinks, and before I was so easy to say no, and now he's like, without the Suboxone, I feel cravings for. He was a drinker too, right? So he's like, now I feel cravings for drinking all the time. When I was on the Suboxone, I didn't feel any cravings whatsoever. So I've been taking him to celebrate recovery meetings, which are a little bit different than like AA or NA, because you can go in there and you don't have to have, it's just a support group basically, right? Like you don't have to label yourself as anything per se. You could go in there because you have anxiety problems. You know what I mean? You could go in there because one lady was saying, oh, I'm pissed off at my mother-in-law, so that's why I'm here today. You know what I mean? You're allowed just to go in there and vent a little, and it's a support group more or less. And it's a little bit faith based. So if you don't like faith, it wouldn't be for you. But it helps him and me, and I'm just trying to help him cut his cravings because my mom lives with him in his granny suite, so I see him often, right? So
Yeah.
I'm just trying to help a friend out when he was the first person who got me to start thinking about getting sober. So I figured I might as well pay him the favor back somehow, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jasmine, you started a podcast called Everybody's Addicted. What was the inspiration for that?
So my daughter's father had contracted pneumonia and was in the ICU over just after Christmas, and he was supposed to be in the hospital longer than he was, and he left because of his drug cravings and stuff like that. And and then I seen how bad people were talking and treating all the people that were homeless in their 10 communities and stuff. And I was like, I don't think this is fair, you know? And it just came to my head that, like, I wanted to show that we are real people and we didn't ask for this. So and I also wanted to show that family members suffer in silence so much, and nobody gives them a voice to explain how they feel caught up in the tornado of the addict, right? So I just kind of wanted to show it from all angles, and also have some clinicians come on and kind of explain the brain aspect of it. And that's kind of what started it, really. It's just the
Absolutely.
wanting to bring understanding and humanizing it a little bit more.
Absolutely. I understand completely. I understand completely. So Jasmine, before we shut down the show, I always ask my my guests, what are three things you're grateful for today?
I am grateful that there is a roof over my head. I am grateful that I have my two beautiful children. And I am grateful that I get to spend some time with my family today.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Jasmine, I want to take a moment and say thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for sharing your story with us and sharing just this little bit of time with us. I am grateful for you, and I'm grateful for the work that you're putting in. You're doing proverbially God's work, and you are helping people um, get sobriety and maintain it through multiple pathways of recovery. Thank you.
Well, thank you, because you're doing the very same thing, and I appreciate being able to finally meet and talk in person. So it was nice. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And everybody, I want to take a moment and say thank you for sharing this moment with us. Thank you for sitting with us and hanging out with us and listening to Jasmine's story. She's a real inspiration, and I'm grateful for her. Be kind to yourself, be gracious to yourself, and love yourself. You are loved, you are worthy, and you are worth it. Have a nice day.